Hey guys, with the rear suspension in, it's time to get the front set so we can finally get some wheels on this car. In this episode, we'll get the front struts ready, put the A-arms on, and get the calipers installed. Let's get started.
All right, so I'm going to do the front suspension now, and I've got my freshly powder coated piece here that I just did in my Eastwood home system. Turned out pretty well. A lot of grease under here though. There's a lot to get clean. So this is OEM. This is the bushing that was in here before, and you can see, I mean, it's a tight fit. I had to press it out and it really popped. I mean, it scared me when it came out. But what I'm going to go with to replace it is a two-part or two-piece bushing from Elephant Racing. So this piece goes down in here, and then this goes up on top. And then once everything gets tight, it squeezes together and accomplishes the same goal as the Rolly OEM. All right, so this freshly plated piece is going here. And then one of these freshly plated pieces is going here. So then we take this bolt and a schnorr washer here at the top of the hill part going towards the head of the bolt. Goes in like that. And then we'll thread this in from below. Of course, it's all going to have to be adjusted for an alignment before I get this out on the road.
With everything up top set, it's time to get the steering rack ready. Now I sent my original rack to 914 Rubber for a rebuild. It's not really a DIY thing, at least not for me. And when it comes to steering and stopping, I save that for the pros.
All right, so I'm going to put the rack in. Here is the beautiful newly refurbished rack from 914 Rubber. You can see there's little paint dabs there to make sure that the nuts and the bolts stay where they're supposed to be. Really nicely refurbished and ready to go back into the car. So here's the short steering shaft. I'm going to replace this hockey puck because it's it's like a rock. So we're going to change that out. And then this is the turbo tie rod set, which 914 Rubber also sells. Just provides a lot better steering feel. And you can check out my turbo tie rod install video when you just click on the link that's right there.
Okay, the new rack goes into the car with the help of a helper, and we'll get it secured with the splines in the right place as well. And then here's the auxiliary carrier. This is what the steering rack ties into, and also the A-arms. Put the bolt in there to hold the carrier up while the steering rack was bolted to it. I'm going to take the bolt out and get the A-arm through the carrier. And of course the torsion bar is going to be in the A-arm, and that's going to help us build up the suspension here on the right side. And then we'll take the tie rod ends and put them on. Now here's an A-arm which I put new bushings in. And here's the torsion bar which goes inside, and it's got splines on both ends. Just want to make sure that that bar doesn't have any rust or nicks or anything in that. Put a little anti-seize on the splines, and if you want to see how I put the new bushings into the A-arm, just click the link in the upper right hand corner here. So the torsion bar is hit home there, and you can see that they're keyed to a side. See the R? Guess what that means.
And now I'm gonna put this carrier into this area here, and that slides in, but it's a tight fit, so it takes a little finesse. So this is now a matter of banging from the front and from the side. And then we have this bolt, the thick washer, goes up through the carrier and into the body of the car. All right, 65 foot-pounds, 34 foot-pounds for the front carrier.
Now here's some other bits of the suspension which I powder coated in my home powder coat oven here. And this foam thing here goes around the torsion bar and it protects the channel from getting water or junk or anything else in it, which is important. Then we'll take the adjuster and we'll get it seated on the splines and then put the bolt through it. And you can see that the bolt pushes against the auxiliary carrier there and leverages against the adjuster, and that's what sets the ride height. Now here's one way you can tell that these 914 rubber bushings for the A-arm are good and snug like stock. So the arm is in and I have a hard time moving it. If these were loose, this would just kind of be floppy in the carrier. So, I mean, I don't have the durometer to test this, but my palm durometer says that these are nice and tight.
Sportswagen zum Einbauen. Now, I don't speak German, but I'm pretty sure that means engineered for performance. So here's the insert, and it goes into the spindle here. Now the instructions say that this area has to be lubricated, some grease, and it comes pre-greased, at least in my case it did. Here's a special tool to tighten this top here. And you do have to buy it separately, it doesn't come with the shock. What we'll do is we'll pop it in and it fits into these little tongs here. I'll take my torque wrench, which is set to 95 foot-pounds. I had to reorient this to get more leverage, and all right. And I'm just cleaning up the hole a little bit here so the pin slip in easier. And the same is true, especially in here. I want to make sure that there's no powder coat in there to make it harder to get that ball joint in.
I'm going to put the ball joints on now, but it's way easier to do it when the A-arm is on the bench. It's too late for me. Save yourselves.
Here's the ball joints I got. Lemforder, however you say that, with the umlaut, German. Here's what they look like. They do not come with the retaining nut, so you got to order that separately. And this is just the protective cover. You'll see that there's a little notch here, and that corresponds with the little notch there on the A-arm. So we'll just drop this in. All right, just get everything lined up.
The brand new ball joint nut I ordered doesn't fit my installation tool, so I'm going to reuse the old one, but it's in pretty good shape.
So here's the nut that goes on the bottom of the ball joint. Now the spec calls for lubricating these threads a little bit because they're torqued really tight, so that's what I did.
So you can see the notch here on the ball joint is pointed towards the rear of the car. It needs to align with the hole in the spindle pretty precisely. So what I like to do is I like to turn it so it's horizontal. It makes it easier to line up. And the way I'm going to do that is just to grab a plier wrapped in some electrical tape and just coax it into position so it's ready to go. Before I tighten the ball joint down, I'll put the spindle in and make sure it all lines up.
All right, so here's our strut with the insert. We're going to find our way up into the hole. And nope, I just made a big mistake. This has to go on first. If you don't, you're going to have to pull the whole thing apart to put it back on. So I had these repowder coated just because I wanted them to be blacks for the Bumblebee. I didn't want the green ones. So now we put this in. And then you see obviously that we can't make this fit, right? So the way you have to do that, the way I'm doing it, is I'm going to muscle this thing in and compress the strut in a position where I can get some leverage on this. And then up we go. And then over
Gonna make sure everything is lined up.
And now, if you can see in there, see how the notch is set inside? Well, this tapered pin is going to fit in there and kind of force the ball joint to lock into this and make the joint really strong.
We'll clean things up a little bit with the wire wheel. Now I'll just drive the pin home, and as it goes in and everything lines up, it'll become super strong.
Then it gets a washer and a special self-tightening nut. Getting this ball joint tightened to the right torque, which is like, I think, 180 pounds, takes a lot of force. So what I'm going to do is get it most of the way there with this beefy torque wrench, and this special tool that you see has these kind of tabs that fit into the slots on the ball joint nut. So we'll hit it with that a few times, and then later I'll come back with a really beefy 3/4 torque wrench and set things up on a jack and get it to really fall into spec. Get this torque down to spec. And we'll tighten these together and you'll see the bushing will compress. You don't want to fully tighten this until the car is on the ground.
Now I'll get the soft brake lines connected while I still have lots of access.
I'll get these two together and then double wrench them tight.
Okay, I've tightened the hard line into the soft, and now the soft line is going to go into this little holder here, and I'll put the clip in there now because it's a lot harder to get in there once the dust shield's on.
We'll get the tie rod connected now. These are special self-locking nuts, but sometimes it's a castle nut and a cotter pin.
Right now it's time to put the dust shield on, and you would think that it would go like this with the dish facing towards the wheel, but it doesn't. It actually goes with the bottom of the dish facing towards the wheel. And it slips on like this. We line up the two caliper holes with the caliper holes, and then this gets 3 bolts here. And here is my new hub and rotor, and it's going to be getting races for bearings on either side of this. And if you want to see detailed instructions on how I did that, just click this link right here. All right, making sure that everything is hospital clean here. And I've got my hub and rotor, which hopefully you watched the video of how I did that. You just gotta make sure you're gentle when you push it all the way in so that the bearing goes onto the spindle correctly. I did clean the back side of the rotor because it's hard to get at. This is the greasy, messy part. It's going in. The outer bearing is going in nice. Then here's the special washer. Goes with the notch. Goes in. This goes on the right way, correct way, normal way. Righty-tighty on the left side of the car. It's lefty-tighty. The reason why that is because of the direction of the wheel spin. You want to make sure that the wheel rotation is not making the nut looser, but making it tighter. Definitely want to clean this again, the back side, before I put the caliper on, because it's a lot harder after. Oh, I've still got some junk coming off of it. I'll worry more about cleaning this before I put the wheel on, but clean it up for now, just so it looks nicer. Right, so what I'm going to do is get this to the point where it's actually tight, which is going to be too tight.
So the idea is to back it off just a little bit from being too tight. What you want to do is you want to be able to move that big washer just a little bit when you put a screwdriver in there. Shouldn't be loose, it should just move. And we'll secure it with the hex bolt, and I'll probably need to come back and adjust it after a little bit of driving.
Spinning smoothly.
There's definitely no rubbing and everything is spinning smoothly, so it's time to put the calipers on.
All right, my beautiful calipers from PMB, ready to go on. Let's just slip them on this way. We have this retaining piece, and the curve goes towards the caliper on this. These caliper bolts go to 51 pounds. Alright, that's 51 there. And that's 51 there.
We'll connect the hard lines into the caliper with a flare nut wrench, and do that on the other side too, where it meets the soft line. We'll need 2 wrenches for that.
Alright, that's all tied up.
Okay, the front suspension is on. The only thing left is the sway bar. I did a full video on installing a stock sway bar on my green car, and you can watch it at the link here.
So here's the sway bar hardware and new drop link bushings from 914 rubber. What's cool about these is that they're split, so you don't have to struggle with the tube that goes through the rubber. With these, they just come apart like this, and then you can just put them in. Center up the little tube, push this through, nut it up, you're in business. And one thing about these drop links is you'll see that they're not totally straight. There's a little bit of a cant this way. You can see it's kind of tilted, right? Or if you hold it this way, you can see that the bar kind of moves. So they really only fit one way well. So you may have to just do a little bit of experimentation under the car to get it right. I can't seem to get it right the first time. Now we'll take the bushing from 914 rubber and put that around the sway bar. Take some soft soap and spread it around here. Try to help the bushing find its way into the hole a little bit easier. And everything will just get compressed here. And if you want to see how to put the sway bar in, check this link. So we'll take this, get it situated on the bar. All right. Now let's see if we can get this lined up right. Actually, I think I got it right the first time. For the first time. Let's see. So just push this in. Yeah, look at that. Got it right the first time. The wonders never cease. Fiddle with it. There you go. Now we just tighten it all down. This is kind of an important thing here, is that the bar is supposed to protrude 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch from the frame here. And if this all lines up, and if the frame lines up and you're at 3 millimeters or so, then you know the bar's in the right place.
With the suspension, rotors, and brakes installed at all 4 corners, I'll get some wheels on the car now and bring it one step closer to getting it off the lift. Remember, it's always important to have a pro check your work, especially with steering, suspension, and brakes. Thanks as always to 914 Rubber and PMB Performance for providing so many great parts for this build. Links to everything are in the description. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching. Be safe and enjoy.